Last summer, a man at Yellowstone National Park walked up to a bison, a 2,000-pound animal that can run 35 miles per hour, and tried to shake its head like a handshake. He survived. Barely. The year before that, a woman at the same park tried to pose her toddler next to one for a photo, and in 2023, a tourist in Thailand crouched down next to a wild tiger that had wandered near a road and started scratching it behind the ear. These aren't fringe cases. They're not even rare. Park rangers call it animal selfie syndrome, and it has become one of the most consistent and baffling patterns in wildlife management worldwide. So the obvious question is, why? These people are not idiots. Many of them are educated adults with full awareness that wild animals are dangerous, and yet something takes over. The brain overrides the logic, the hand reaches out. What is going on inside your head in that moment? The answer is one of the most fascinating stories in all of human psychology, and it starts a very long time ago. Let's go back about 300,000 years. There are no cities, no roads, no grocery stores, no safety nets of any kind. Your entire survival depends on correctly reading the living world around you every single day. The direction birds are flying, the way grass bends near a watering hole, whether that shape in the shadows is a log or a leopard. In this world, your relationship with animals isn't a hobby. It's life or death information. The people who were most attuned to animal behavior, who could read the subtle signs, predict movements, anticipate threats, survived, ate better, raised more children. Over hundreds of thousands of years, this constant pressure built something extraordinary into the human brain, a near-automatic system for detecting, tracking, and responding to living creatures. Researchers have since confirmed that humans process biological motion, the movement patterns of living things, faster and more accurately than any other type of movement. There are dedicated neural pathways just for this. Your brain has a special department whose only job is to track animals. And here's the thing about a system that's this sensitive. It can't easily be switched off. This detector fires all the time. People apologize to furniture they bump into. We name cars. We get irrationally angry at a computer that freezes at the wrong moment. In a famous psychology experiment, researchers showed participants nothing but two triangles and a circle moving across a screen. And people immediately began describing emotions, motivations, and personalities for the shapes. They couldn't help it. The brain sees life everywhere, because in our ancestral environment, assuming life was present was almost always the safe bet. Missing a real predator in the brush? That's the kind of mistake you don't get a second chance at. But detecting animals and being magnetically drawn to them are two different things. So where does the draw come from? In 1984, biologist E.O. Wilson introduced the concept of biophilia, from the Greek meaning love of living things. His argument was straightforward but radical. Humans don't just coexist with the natural world. We are psychologically tethered to it, because our minds literally evolved inside it. Wilson said the pull toward nature isn't cultural or learned. It's structural. It's wired in. The research that followed has been striking. Patients in hospital rooms with a window view of trees recover measurably faster than those facing a wall. Same treatment, same diagnosis, different window. A 2019 study in Frontiers in Psychology found that just 20 minutes in a natural environment significantly dropped cortisol levels. That's your stress hormone, regardless of whether the person was physically active or just sitting there. Office workers near plants perform better on memory and attention tasks. Children who have regular access to natural environments show lower rates of anxiety and ADHD symptoms. Elderly people in care homes who interact regularly with animals show slower rates of cognitive decline. This isn't soft science. The effect of living things on human psychology is measurable, consistent, and significant. From this lens, the urge to reach out and touch a wild animal doesn't look strange at all. It looks like one of the most natural responses a human brain can produce. What's actually strange, if you think about it for a moment, is how completely most of us have disconnected from the living world and somehow convinced ourselves that it's fine. Now, why is it that a bear cub is almost physically impossible to resist, but the same bear 3 years later makes people run? This is where evolution played one of its most elegant and dangerous tricks. Human babies are, by the standards of the animal kingdom, absolutely helpless. A baby horse stands within an hour of birth. A baby wildebeest can run with the herd within minutes. A human infant can't even hold its own head up for weeks. We are among the most dependent newborns of any species on Earth. That extreme helplessness created massive evolutionary pressure. Adults who felt a strong, almost compulsive drive to care for infants raised more surviving children. So over time, babies evolved a very specific set of physical signals. Large eyes relative to the face, a big rounded forehead, small nose, chubby cheeks, short, stubby limbs. Austrian ethologist Konrad Lorenz identified this pattern in the 1940s and called it Kindchenschema, baby schema. He showed that these features in combination trigger something automatic in adults, a surge of warmth, protectiveness, and the desire to engage. Here's the critical part. Your brain doesn't care whether these features belong to a human. Baby pandas, seal pups, bear cubs, rabbit kits, fox kittens. All of them independently evolved the same broad forehead, big eyes, round face combination. And your brain responds to all of them with the same neurological cocktail it fires for a human baby. Brain imaging studies have confirmed this is not a conscious evaluation. Looking at a cute infant face, human or animal, activates the orbitofrontal cortex and the nucleus accumbens in milliseconds. That's the reward system. That's the same circuitry involved in eating, sex, and social connection. The response fires before your reasoning brain even gets involved. A team at the University of Vienna found something that still surprises people when they hear it. Simply viewing photographs of cute baby animals improved participants' fine motor precision, as if the brain was already preparing the hands to handle something small and fragile. In other words, by the time you've decided whether to touch that animal, your brain has already made the decision. It's just waiting for your hands to catch up. Sometimes the response overshoots completely. You've probably felt it. You see a puppy so absurdly small and ridiculous looking that something short circuits. You want to squeeze it. You'd never hurt it. The idea is horrifying, but the impulse is there. People say things like, "I want to eat him," or "I could just crush her little face." Nobody means it. But where does that come from? Researchers at Yale studied this phenomenon in 2015 and called it cute aggression. They're finding it's a regulatory mechanism. When the brain's emotional reward system gets overwhelmed, when cuteness tips past a certain threshold, the nervous system produces a counterbalancing aggressive impulse to bring you back to baseline. It's not malfunction, it's the emotional equivalent of a circuit breaker. What this also means, the cuter the animal, the more destabilized your judgment becomes. The brain is managing overflow. It's not thinking clearly about risk. It's regulating emotion. This, more than anything, may explain why someone reaches out and touches a wild animal that their rational mind knows is dangerous. The emotional system has already consumed the cognitive resources that would normally pump the brakes. There's one more layer here that rarely gets talked about.
Humans are unusually touch-oriented animals. Physical contact plays a central role in how we build trust, regulate emotion, and communicate care, even between strangers. Studies show that a brief, appropriate touch from an unknown person measurably increases compliance, reported warmth, and feelings of connection. Skin contact triggers the release of oxytocin, the bonding hormone. It lowers heart rate. It reduces cortisol. It signals safety at a biological level. And critically, humans have been extending this bonding behavior to animals for a very long time. The domestication of dogs began somewhere between 15,000 and 40,000 years ago, the earliest known animal domestication in human history. This wasn't a quirky accident. Humans and animals have been in deliberate, reciprocal relationship for as long as we have any archaeological record of it. The moment a person begins to perceive an animal as a social entity, begins reading expression, personality, and emotion into its behavior, touch becomes the natural conclusion. It's the same logic that makes you want to hug a friend you haven't seen in a year. The problem, of course, is the one-sidedness of the arrangement. The bison has not agreed to any of this. Okay, so now we can understand why people want to pet baby animals and animals that feel socially relatable. But what about the ones that are obviously dangerous? The bear, the alligator, the crocodile. Nobody mistakes a saltwater crocodile for a puppy. There's no Kindchenschema going on there. So why do people still approach them? Here's the piece nobody talks about. Humans are one of the only species on Earth that deliberately seek out fear as entertainment. We ride roller coasters. We jump out of planes. We watch horror films. We go to haunted houses. We free solo climb vertical cliff faces for fun. No other animal on the planet does this. It's a uniquely human behavior. Why? Because fear and excitement activate nearly identical neurological systems. Both dump adrenaline into the bloodstream. Both sharpen attention and sensory focus. Both make experiences feel more intense, more vivid, more memorable. From your brain's perspective, they're not opposites. They exist on a continuum. When you stand near a dangerous wild animal, in a national park with other people around, in daylight, your brain receives the excitement signal without the full danger signal. The context filters it. The environment says, other people are nearby, nothing bad has happened yet, this feels somewhat controlled. What you get is a specific cocktail, the physiological rush of proximity to a predator interpreted through a cognitive frame of manageable risk. Psychologists call this operating at the optimal level of arousal, exciting enough to feel alive, controlled enough to feel survivable. A wild animal at a national park hits that sweet spot almost perfectly, which is exactly why it's so seductive, and exactly why it's so dangerous, because the animal has no idea you've decided this situation is controlled.
There's one final piece, and it might be the most consequential of all. Humans are relentless anthropomorphizers. We project human thoughts, feelings, and intentions onto things that don't have them. We do it so automatically that we often don't even notice. When a dog avoids your eye contact after destroying a cushion, we say it looks guilty. When a cat stares at us from across a room, we assume judgment. When a crow tilts its head, we say it seems curious, and in some cases we're actually right. Research has confirmed that dogs experience something genuinely resembling guilt and grief. Elephants display documented mourning behaviors. Crows form specific grudges against individual humans who have wronged them, and pass that information on to other crows. But wild animals operate on a fundamentally different register. A bison standing quietly in a field is not communicating calmness or friendliness. It's doing what bison do. A lion lying in the sun isn't relaxed in the way you are relaxed.
It's in a physiological state your brain has no calibration for. Our brains evolved to read social signals in other humans, and to some extent in the domestic animals we've coexisted with for thousands of years. We were never calibrated for the behavioral vocabulary of wild megafauna. The result is a systematic and lethal mismatch. In Yellowstone National Park, bison injure more visitors each year than wolves, bears, and mountain lions combined. Not because bison are unusually aggressive, they're not, but because tourists consistently misread their stillness as safety and get within a range that the animal experiences as a threat. The tourists don't see a threat response beginning. They see a large, docile-looking animal that isn't moving. They've already written the social script. So let's put it all together. A person stands on a trail and sees a wild animal. In the span of less than a second, a cascade begins. An ancient detection system, built over hundreds of thousands of years, flags a living presence. A biophilic pull draws the person toward it. If the animal has baby-like features, the reward centers fire before conscious thought kicks in. If the animal seems readable, the anthropomorphism engine translates its behavior into something familiar and safe. Sensation-seeking adds a layer of adrenaline that the brain interprets as excitement. And finally, the deep human drive for physical connection does the rest. Every single one of those forces is functioning exactly as designed. Every one of them exists for good reasons. Together, they make us who we are. The species that domesticated wolves, trained horses, kept birds, built aquariums, and forged working relationships with animals from dozens of completely unrelated evolutionary lineages. We evolved in relationship with the living world, and that relationship has real, measurable returns. People who own pets have lower rates of cardiovascular disease and elevated emotional well-being. Children raised with animals show higher empathy and lower anxiety. In one study of elderly care home residents, regular animal interaction significantly delayed the onset of cognitive decline. The instinct isn't the problem. The problem is a 300,000-year-old brain running ancient software in a modern environment it was never designed for. In the world our minds were built for, you didn't encounter your first bison on vacation. You grew up alongside animals, watched them for years, learned their actual behavioral language through accumulated experience across a lifetime. Your impulses were calibrated by real knowledge. Today, someone flies across a continent, spends 48 hours in a national park, and stands 3 feet from a 1,000-pound animal they've never encountered before, with a phone in one hand and a lifetime of biology pulling the other arm forward. The impulse that makes you reach toward a wild animal is the same one that lets you love a dog. The same one that pulls you toward forests and oceans. The same one that makes humans the only species in history to voluntarily form relationships with creatures from dozens of completely different families, classes, and evolutionary backgrounds. That impulse is ancient, and it's real, and it's not going anywhere. It just needs better information than, "That thing is fluffy and it hasn't charged yet." Because somewhere right now, a park ranger is watching a tourist crouch toward a bison and thinking, the biology makes complete sense. The obituary, though, would not.